Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. In honor of the newly released Insurgent movie, I decided I would do a book review, but it's not going to be on Insurgent, it is going to be on 4. This is also part of the Divergent series, and obviously it's by Veronica Roth. Okay, so if you have no idea what Divergent is, I will link the video review that I did on Divergent when Divergent first came out. But it does take place in a dystopian world, kind of like the Hunger Games and, you know, all that good stuff. And it tells the story of a young girl named Tris, and she has to live within a world that has only 5 factions: Abnegation, Dauntless, Amity, Candor, and Erudite. Each of these factions represent a personality for all the people that are in them. You know, like Abnegation is for being selfless, Dauntless for being brave, so on and so forth. And in the books there is a character by the name of Four, or Tobias as his real name is, and he is the boyfriend of Tris, who is the main heroine in the Divergent series. Okay, so when I finally ended the other 3 books, I immediately went into 4 because I was really looking forward to reading a little bit more about this awesome character. I really love the character of 4. I feel that in the books that she didn't really go too much into 4's background, so I was really looking forward to seeing what he was like before he met Tris, and you know what it was like in his life to be living in Abnegation before he went to Dauntless, and also when he was living in Dauntless. So the book does start off a bit before choosing day. Tobias, it actually starts off rather abrupt. It kind of cuts into the middle of him taking his test for his faction test or whatever it is called. I totally slipped my mind. And that's when you learn that he learns that his tests are a little bit weird. And you also see Tori. Just like in Divergent with Tris, she is administering the test for Tobias. And so we do get to see, or read in this case, a couple of familiar faces. Some that we love and some that we absolutely hate. Oh yeah, and his dad makes an appearance too. So yeah, we do mainly get to see a lot of life-changing choices for Tobias, especially as what had a hand to making him choose Dauntless. We also learned what he was feeling during the choosing day ceremony, and just how finished he was feeling because of how his dad was towards him. We know in pretty much in the first book of Divergent that he and his dad aren't on very great grounds. He was just feeling that his father was constantly beating on him for every little thing that he was doing. And so, you know, it was an interesting point of view to read that we knew about, but it was interesting to read about. And we also read about how Tobias found out how his mother died and what the reason was, which we all know pretty much was not true. I did notice a sort of pattern with 4 and the first book, Divergent. This book and Divergent, I noticed that at the beginning, Tris and Tobias each had they felt that they were unwanted in Abnegation. I guess in a way they felt like they didn't belong in Abnegation. And so then after they transfer into Dauntless, they kind of feel they had like doubts about being in Dauntless. So we do see some sort of similarities between 4 and Divergent, but I think that was pretty much the only thing that I really noticed. We also learned how different the initiation during Tobias's time and Tris's time was, because we know during Divergent they made a list and it only went up to I think like maybe 10 people, and there was like 15 people who went into Dauntless, so pretty much some of them would have to be cut. Whereas when Tobias was going in it, none of them would get cut. That's pretty much after Tobias transferred into Dauntless. We pretty much knew that he was already going to get in. It's after the fact, after I think like a year that he was in there, that they started to make changes, and that's when it happens to Tris. And that's what happens pretty much. That's when it starts to change a lot. You see, that's where the beginning of the change is during the Dauntless and what leads up to Divergent. So we go through the trials with Tobias. We learn how many fears he has, how he got his name, and what he does to overcome them. Obviously, as the book kind of keeps going on, as Tobias is learning more things, he also learns that his mother is alive. Tobias learns that his mother is alive, and believing that she's been dead for years, they meet up, and he obviously is very resentful of the fact that she just totally left him to be with his dad, and he pretty much tells her that he doesn't care about her anymore. And that's when he learns that, she's kind of this leader of the factionless team, and she pretty much warns him that things are happening, and he is obviously too wound up in his emotions to really give two craps about her. And that's when we learn that she tells him to not trust any of the people that he meets, any of the leaders, and he obviously is kind of doubtful of her. But then, in the end, he does realize what exactly is happening through his investigations. We get to see him kind of become like Detective Sherlock or whatever, and he finally learns that there are some strange things happening, especially after he is appointed as a leader of the Dauntless faction. He would have been the youngest, I think the youngest, maybe I could be wrong, maybe there was somebody younger, but one of the youngest, I should say, leaders. And he was given the chance to train with all the older leaders, but after he meets his mom, he starts to doubt them instead. And so that's pretty much where we get a little bit left off. The last chapter does include Tris, and it kind of gives a mixture of his point of view during some of Tris's interactions that we read in Divergent, but also a little bit more of a background as to what he was doing, especially when Tris is getting beat up by Will. And so we are pretty much left with Tobias not really trusting anyone except Tris and some of his friends, obviously, in Dauntless. He is very suspicious of his leader. He doesn't trust Eric. And that's a little bit where we left off, where the main book leaves off. And so then there are also some exclusive scenes from Divergent that are told from Tobias's perspective. And the first one is First Jumper Tris, and that pretty much is given in the title. It tells the perspective of a little bit before, when he was waiting for the initiates to jump, and he sees Tris, and it's like love at first sight. Then there are the last two, Careful Tris and You Look Good Tris. I loved You Look Good Tris. This is when Drunk Tobias comes out. I just had a lot of fun reading that part in Divergent, and just to see it in this book from his perspective is just amazing. I loved it. I did have a lot of fun reading this book. It was great to see a different perspective of Tobias and what he was thinking and how he's feeling. It wasn't very long either. I think it was like 285 pages exactly. All the chapters. I read it within 2 days. I would have probably read it in 1 day if my schoolwork didn't get in the way. But that's okay because I got through it. Also, I will say, I think the one thing, I don't know, maybe this is just me, but I will say that when I was reading the last two of the Divergent series, I did get a little bit confused because there were some things that were kind of made me go, huh? What? Did I miss something? Did I miss reading something? So I will, especially, about his mom and his friend that he meets in the third book, who, he thought he was dead. And so this does answer those questions. I mean, at least for me, I don't know, maybe I'm looking too much into it, but that was a nice little bit of a finishing for that part of Tobias's life. All in all, I would totally recommend this book, especially if you are a huge fan of the Divergent series. I would have read this book first, just because the way that I read the last two books kind of did confuse me, but I think you could get away with reading this one last. I mean, either way, it all adds up, and you eventually find out what Veronica Roth was trying to say. So that is going to be it for this book review. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun reading this book. Who's going to be seeing Insurgent? I don't think I'm going to be seeing Insurgent. I'm probably going to wait for it to come out on DVD. I waited for the DVD of Divergent, and I'm going to be honest, I like the book probably a little bit more than I like the movie. So I'm not sure if I'm going to like Insurgent, because my feelings towards the last two books, obviously, I love Divergent much more than I liked Insurgent and Allegiant for obvious reasons. So I'm probably going to wait for it to come out on DVD. I don't know. I think that's what I'm heading for. So, thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this book review. And I'll probably be doing some more book reviews in the sometime future. Hopefully, I got a new stack of books and I'm just reading the crap out of them. So I will see you guys later. And thanks for watching. Bye!